And the river still shines and shimmers in the light as it did in our grandfather's day, when they rode all night to fish in the morning and lived in Willapa Bay.
So we are down to our final performer, and quite a performer he is. Several years ago, they dubbed Ron the sheriff of Fisher Poets. And since I usually stick around Oregon for a little bit, I rent a car, so I end up driving him around. And so they called me his deputy. And that may seem like an honor, but nothing good ever happens to Festus. And basically, I'm his Festus. At the same time, I challenge you to find a kinder heart than Mr. Ron McDaniel. I am blessed to call him my friend, and I welcome him to the stage. Please welcome him with me. Ron McDaniel.
Just another happy cowboy. A few short years ago, I met some Fisher poets. They were performing down in Elko. Follow us to Astoria. Like mythical sirens, they would plead. Well, I didn't realize they had uncovered a deep, abiding need. I had emotions I couldn't understand, so I went to see a shrink. I wasn't sure who I was anymore. I was right up to the brink of utter desperation, keeping something deep inside, these feelings that I'd hidden because of cowboy pride. The psychiatrist asked about my mother, which is where they always start. No, I really didn't want to do it. I felt I had to play my part. See, my mom's afraid of water because she never learned to swim. Why, if I'd just so much as get wet, her countenance was quite grim. And ever since I was a little boy, she never let me near the sea. Promise me you'll never leave dry land. That was her constant plea. So I became a cowboy, a rootin' tootin' buckaroo. If she'd had her way, I'd never be here with the likes of you. One summer, I went set netting with the brothers, the Broderick crew. Father John, though a humble guy, you must give the devil his due. In the winter, he's a mild-mannered teacher at the school. But summers on the Nushagak, he'll work you like a rented mule. Well, I took my son up with me to let him taste the fishing life. Well, when we got to Dillingham, we met a couple fellas that caused me lots of strife. They both wore cowboy hats, but they wouldn't engage in conversation. In fact, they ignored me like I was speaking Chinese. That added to my frustration. Why, then stuck-up cowboys, they wouldn't even utter a single word. I thought they'd give us a bad reputation among fishermen, so I thought I better cut them from the herd. I said, son, this could get ugly, but I'm going to clean them cowboys' clocks. He said, Dad, they ain't real cowboys, they're Russian Orthodox. Well, we only fished a few days, but it sure was enough to know I liked wearing 620s. I looked good in extra tufts. I wanted to be a fisherman. I tried with all my might. But did I really like the work or the clothes they wear? Am I a transvestite? And what about my buckaroo buddies when they find I've got a passion for the ocean? Did those fisher poets slip something in my drink, some secret nautical potion? Did those cowboys know as we trailed those cattle down the trail that underneath my cowboy hat I sported a ponytail? Yeah, I'm a cowboy in a skiff. I never will grow up. Seems like fishermen and cowboys drink from the same darn cup. And after many visits with my therapist, his diagnosis is quite sensational. I don't have to choose between cowboys or fishermen. He said I'm bivocational. Thank you. I ain't ever done a wardrobe change on stage here. Yeah, I don't hoop and holler. I ain't used to getting dressed with nobody around. My wife even turns the light off, so. Adrift and floating, then washed up on the shore. Most folks don't even know what this was once used for. But to the fisherman, it's clear what washed up from the brine. See, cowboys would call this a rope, but you and I know it's a line. We both use it to catch things we want to keep. Cowboys catch wild cows, and fishermen harvest the bounty from the deep. I often look at this line and I wondered, how many crabs did it pull in? Did it make their wallets fat with cash, or are they still much too thin? This line's been used for roping cows, pulling in big pots, for lashing down our gear and tying things with knots. The same line you use to do your job can be the one to kill you. The rope we catch a cow with can be the one to spill you. Now, there ain't no guarantee you'll always catch something in your loop. Some days you're eating ribeyes, but most days you're slurping soup. But see, there's a connection between us when we hold it in our hand. When you're out there on that ocean and I'm back here on this land. You know, most folks think we're different. In some ways, I think we are. But the distance in between us is really not that far. It don't really matter whether you call this a rope or a line. You've been blessed to live the life you live as I've been blessed to live mine. Now, to most folks, this is just a crab line that washed up on the shore. But to an aging cowboy, it just means a whole lot more. Oh, you can tell it's been used a lot. You can see that it's fraying. But it reminds me of the fisherman, always sticking and always staying. I told Gino I think he had to head somewhere else. I told him I was going to mention him. That ain't no made-up poem. For the knot workshop one year, they found some crab line washed up on the shore, and they cut a bunch of it into lengths for teaching folks how to tie knots. And if you hadn't ever done that workshop tomorrow, you sure ought to go to it. It's a neat deal. Cowboys and fishermen, they always like tying stuff up, right? So it's a neat deal. But they got done and had a few coils, and Gino, give me this. Said, can you do anything with this? And I said, yeah. I tied a Honda in it. And it's not exactly perfect for roping cows. It's a little bit lightweight. We get windy, but every spring I go catch something with it. I try to catch a day that's not windy, and I might be at a Brandon. We might catch some 150-pound calves and drag them to the fire, but I've roped a 600-pound yearling just once every spring, just to have this connection to these fishermen, to think about Gino coiling me up some crab line that washed ashore. I wondered what I could do with it. And I would tell you this, it's easier to tell with Gino not here. He and I come from this generation. He's a little older than I am. I'm not just humbled that Gino would turn out to become a friend, but so many of these men and women here that fish just kind of embrace this cowboy they drug up years ago and invite me back every year. And I really did go fish with John Broderick and his boys. And I mean, it's a prized possession. If you don't fish, you won't know what this is. It won't mean nothing to you. But from 2010, and Doreen told me they don't even give you these with your fishing licenses anymore, but I got our fishing license where we fish there in Bristol Bay. Still kept them. I'm proud of that. It don't make me a fisherman because I spent several days there, right? But I got to do something that less than 1% of the world got to do. I got to go be side by side, shoulder by shoulder with some set netters that were hauling in fish. And boy, did we have a run. They plugged the nets. It was quite a deal. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for that exposure. I'm grateful, for Gino, Dave Dinsmore, Jay, John. They've just been so kind to share their world with me. And so we come from that generation where we didn't have to be touched and petted to feel loved when we was growing up. And I don't mean nothing about that now. In fact, I got 4 kids. All of them boys, except for 3 of them, and it started with my girls. I hugged on my girls, and then my boy had my boy 10 years later, and he's a grown man now, and just lives 25 minutes from me. But when I see him, I hug and kiss that boy every time, every day we see each other, right? But yeah, thanks. I ain't saying that to impress nobody. I'm saying it to kind of set you up for it. It ain't always that easy. I got in this hugging mode, and a few years ago, Gino come off the stage, and I hugged him. And then we had this writer's workshop, and this is the actual notes from the writer's workshop. Did any of you go to the workshops today? Boy, yeah. Were they good? Yeah. Radio audience, you can't see all the hands up everywhere. But I'd encourage you to go to the workshops. I love to go to the writing workshops. And I went to John Broderick's writing workshop. And he's always kind of stretches you. I don't know how to write. I'm from Arkansas. I can barely read. This is being broadcast across the world by KMUN, and I am making my home state proud. But ain't nobody I know still awake, so So John was kind of stretching us, and he was like, show them, don't tell them with your poetry, with your words, write lines that show but don't tell. And he said, write one long descriptive line of something and then follow it with a short line. So here's what I wrote the day after I hugged Gino. Hugging Gino was like single-handedly trying to move a recliner chair through a door that was too small. An awkward moment passed. Hey, we're going to wrap it up with this. You've been a great audience. If you're listening on KMUN, this is it for the night. Be sure to tune in tomorrow. I really don't read a lot of my poetry. I try to memorize it, but I wrote this one during the COVID, and I just kind of finished it recently. The COVID, on the one hand, and I hate to admit this because it was so hard on so many people, but on the one hand, it was pretty good for me because I travel. I don't just cowboy, but I sell horse drugs and vaccines to veterinarians and travel around a lot. And so the COVID, everybody had to stay home. I'd never stayed home that much in 40 years of marriage. And I would tell you this, and I ain't saying it because it's on the radio because my wife's not listening anyway, but I loved it. I loved being home. I didn't know if I'd like being home that many days in a row, and I was home a long time. But it was an odd time. Things were different. I couldn't go day work. I couldn't go cowboy for some ranches that I'd cowboy for in Kansas and Oklahoma because they wouldn't let you come out of state. They were trying to keep everything, and so I was home a lot. And the other thing we had in Arkansas and in the middle part of the country, we had a meat shortage. I don't know if y'all had a meat shortage during the COVID, but you couldn't get meat. And if you raise cattle like me and you take them to your local butcher, he was 300 days out for me to get an appointment to get some cattle butchered. So we were running short on meat, and I was going crazy. I think I was losing my mind. And this is a poem I wrote as a result. I think my horse and I were kind of communicating with each other through this period. And I've got several horses, but I have this one mare that I kind of use the most, and I think she's kind of connected to me. And so Meezie's going to read the part of my mare.
Under a little bit of protest.
A horse whisperer I'll never claim to be, but yesterday my horse spoke telepathically. Now, I'm sure many of you look at me with doubt. Before you say I'm crazy, just please hear me out. Now, it could be this isolation that's given me cabin fever. I can't stop these horse voices in my head. I'm an unwilling receiver.
Hey, Ron, what's the deal? Why are you around the house so much? You often walk out in my pasture to give me a pat or gentle touch. I'm alarmed at this behavior. Are you selling me to another ranch? I'm sorry I shouldn't have bucked you off or run you under that branch.
Relax, I tell her. You've not been sold. I'm simply sheltering in place. There's a virus among us that limits my contact with the human race.
Is that the reason you put on gloves and walk around in a mask? You're busy mowing, fixing things, and catching up on tasks? And what's with riding me every day, never leaving town? I'm sick of your constant training and lunging me round and round.
Oh, quit your belly aching. This is exercise you need.
Just take me to my stall where I can munch on hay and feed. And Ron, I gotta tell you, those gloves just make me nervous. The anxiety they cause me is really a disservice.
Oh, I see. Doc only wears a glove when he comes to give you care. It's to protect you both from germs. Now, don't you think that's fair?
You call it fair when Doc comes out to clean the gelding's funk, then snaps on a glove and without shame starts handling his junk? And when he wraps my tail, he ain't decorating me for a parade. He starts lubing up his glove. I won't say where he'll invade.
Well, COVID-19's tough on us all. I'm really beginning to worry. The stores are out of meat. They better fix that in a hurry.
Oh, great. I'm stressed already and you spring this news on me? Just open up the gate and turn your back. I need the chance to flee. Meat starvation does crazy things. It'll cause men to lose their mind. It creates a panic, a zombie-like state. They'll gnaw any bone they find.
My point exactly. History tells us the unspeakable effect on the mass. You see, long ago some folks got lost. They were searching for a past, known as the Donner Party. They ran out of meat, and as the story goes, they had to eat some humans from their head down to their toes. And now I see folks leering at me. I fear it's my flesh they crave. Well, I'll never let them see me sweat, though. I'll be confident and brave.
Oh, in that one event, the humans were main courses, but every time folks get lost and desperate, they always eat their horses. People forget this mighty country was built on the horse's back. We plowed your fields, cleared your forests. We had to haul your gear to pack. We helped you gather your cattle. We carried you off to war. We pranced in parades. We carried your children. We did your every chore.
I don't dispute what you say, but we need something else to eat. And through the centuries, man has developed an appetite for meat.
May I suggest you eat your dog? I hear it tastes like chicken. I know at first it sounds absurd, it makes your heartbeat quicken, but roast of canine could sure catch on. Please just think it over. We could market it through a fast food chain and call it the McRover.
Meezie Hermansen, folks.
Now, I have to say one thing, because Ron's people are asleep, but I live in Alaska and my people are not, and I am a veterinarian. I do not condone the McRover.
Thank you, Meezie. Hey, thank you. That's our show for tonight. Thank you for coming to Astoria. Thanks for coming to Fisher Poets. We'll see you tomorrow night.
White Maine spruce, grain so even, you can almost hear the music now. Sidewood bent in the water steaming, and the easy slide of a dovetail saw. I learned these skills, but no one taught me. I make guitars that others play. Too much rain and darn long winters, but I love the work of a luthier's trade.
Thank you for joining us here to talk about Fisher Poets Gathering. Can you tell me your name, please?
I'm Charlie Becker.
Charlie, I am so happy to meet you. Are you an Astoria local, or did you come from?
I'm a dual citizen. I'm from Portland and Astoria.
So you are well qualified to come to the Astoria Fisher Poets Gathering.
Plus I'm an old sailor, so that doesn't hurt. Oh. I'm an old Navy sailor.
Perfect.
And I will say it's such a delight. The performances here, more than that, the seminars taught by these real pros, who are real pros at their literal thing, their poetry and the way they present. So there's a great deal for all of us to learn, I think, going through this. I'm also a bit of a mandolin player myself, so I kind of fade in with this sort of thing. It's very artsy too. Yeah.
That's fantastic. And I've heard the workshops are really, really good as well. So I'm glad you're
very good on doing your writing. These guys on the water, evidently they occupy themselves doing their writing. They're really remarkably creative. I'm sure you must observe the same thing. Yeah.
Indeed. Yeah. Charlie, how many years have you been doing this?
I'm about 4 years into this one. Okay, and it is kind of new to me, but about 4 years. But I fit right in, and well, for the most part. But there's really a community of people on the water who come here, and I do feel that most of us don't know what it's like to be on that water out there. So here it is brought for us. We get a sense of it, and I appreciate it. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Well, I know it's only Friday. We haven't had the Saturday performances yet, but what's been your favorite part so far?
I think some of the workshops I attended yesterday, which involved your writing of your content and the telling of your story, because we do have stories, and so much of this really is about stories, and it has broad application for stories of all sorts. And so they teach you how to prompt yourself, how you might get enthusiasm, how to present, and really how to find your voice. I mean, really, isn't that what it is? Most of us want to find our voice in what we do.
You know what? We are so lucky we got to talk to you today. Thank you so much for talking with us.
Thank you. Likewise.
Appreciate it.